Hello furious marketers, this is Romuald Fons. Welcome to the first video, properly speaking, of the SEO course. How to choose a perfect domain. Defining the domain is one of the first steps we need to take to start creating our website. And it's also one of the most important ones because it's going to define the course of our project. It's so important, we're going to create 3 videos. We're going to create a mini series of 3 videos in which I'm going to talk in the first video about the name of the domain. In the second video, I'll talk about the domain extension. And in the third video, I'll talk about more advanced stuff such as keyword searches, if we can use expired domains or not, things that are more SEO advanced, okay? First, I suppose you know what a domain is, if not check it out in the dictionary. A domain, I'm going to talk about my domain, romualdfons.com, has 2 different parts, the name and the extension, and both are important for SEO. In this video, we'll focus on this first part, which it doesn't seem like it, but it has a lot of content. Beyond the obvious stuff that people know, like a domain needs to be short, a domain needs to be easy to remember, a domain needs to be awesome, everyone already knows all that. But is all that really important when it comes to ranking? Is it key? Not really. We need to keep in mind that SEO is not a science, and even if all of us like people to tell us, if you do this way, like this, you're doing it perfectly and it's gonna work. SEO is not like that. In SEO workers need to make decisions, and that's something very important that you need to embody. Using the experience and the knowledge, we can achieve the same objectives by taking different roads. And this is what I'm gonna teach you today. So then, what can we use as a reference to choose the name for our domain? The ingredients are keyword, local, and brand. With these 3 ingredients, maybe just using one or mixing 2 or all of them, we can generate lots of domain names that will help us find what we are looking for. And that is very important. The first thing you gotta ask yourself is, what do I want to achieve with my website? And that needs to be shown in the domain's name. Let me give you an example. Keyword SEO. Getting lots of visitors with keywords. Keywords are words that people look for in the search engines, SEO dictionary. If we add this keyword inside the domain, or what we usually call EMD, exact match domain, we're gonna be telling Google that our domain talks about that keyword. And it's gonna give us a small boost, a little improvement when ranking the website, for many reasons that I won't explain here. Like, for example, there will be inbound links with that anchor text, but anyway, I said I'm not gonna explain it here, so I won't. Come on, Romuald, keep going. Examples of domains with a keyword. One of them would be, for example, SEOexpert.com. This is a domain that's already saying, hey, my website talks about SEO expert, okay? Second ingredient that can make our domain help us bring more visitors. Local SEO. Why did I separate it from the keyword? Because the local SEO differs from this other type of SEO, and we apply them in different cases. For example, it makes sense to apply it if you've got a local business, or if you're providing service to a specific area, zone, city, town, whatever you want to call it. I'll give you an example of this local ingredient. This could be Barcelona. Barcelona is already telling your visitors and Google that your domain is presented as geolocated. Local. And last but not least, in third position, we've got the brand ingredient. Whatever thing that defines a brand or a product or a person or I don't know, anything that could be a brand. An example of a domain with this brand ingredient would be romualdfons.com, my domain. This domain is just telling Google that this website is talking about myself and that's it. It's not giving us anything extra. And now is when things will get interesting because we can mix these ingredients to have different domain names. Let's take the example of my domain. My domain is romualdfons.com, but I'm also an SEO worker. Could I have picked romualdfonsseo.com? I could have, but would that contribute anything? No, barely. Why? Because the word SEO is a high competence word, and the EMDs, the exact match domains, the domains that have a keyword in its name, don't give you that much strength, just a little, a very small plus. So, does having romualdfonsseo.com make any sense? It's not gonna contribute anything and it's spoiling my brand domain, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's have another example. Let's say we have a long tail keyword. Here you got it. Romuald Fons SEOexpert.com. Does this make any sense? A little bit. Why? Because SEO expert is a word with less competition, and the EMD, the exact match domain, might help me push my domain a little bit in the SERPs. Damn, all the words are coming out. You see why the dictionary was necessary? It was necessary. That doesn't guarantee anything, but what is starting to happen is that my domain is getting longer. Romuald Fons SEOexpert.com, I don't really like it if the brand is my priority, which in this case it is. Another example, let's combine all three ingredients. Romuald Fons Barcelona SEOexpert.com. Is this a good domain? This domain is a good domain to rank in the home page, Barcelona SEO Expert. If that was my objective, it would be great. But honestly, if that was the case, if what I wanted was to give expert SEO service in Barcelona, I wouldn't add the name Romuald Fons to begin with. Why? Because Romuald Fons Barcelona SEOexpert.com is a huge domain and it's not really that cool, is it? Especially for the brand, it's spoiling the brand. But it would help me to rank that keyword. Keep in mind that EMDs might give you that much strength. SEO has this much. As you can see, the EMD strength is lost. But SEO Expert is this much. The EMD strength is more powerful. And Barcelona SEO Expert is just this, so the EMD strength is even more noticeable. Do you follow what's happening here? You can use this, and this. You can combine them. You can find names that could help with SEO, but you always need to keep in mind what's the objective you want to achieve with your website, with your domain. If the objective is to create a brand, this needs to lead. If the objective is to get organic traffic, this one needs to lead. And if the objective is to give a local service, this needs to lead. And you can mix them around. I told you before, this is not a science. You need to apply your own judgment. And you need to keep in mind, now I'll give you a few examples, in SEO, even if you take an option that doesn't seem the best choice, it can be balanced with lots of other actions, and that is key. And now let's move on to my favorite part, which is answering the questions that you've asked me. Cause that's the best part of what we're doing. When I said that I'm not making this course alone, but I'm making it with you, it was true. And you asked me not just one question, but 400. I've selected a few of them that I consider are the most significant, and I've also added other questions myself. Like that, everyone will be happy because everything will be answered. Blanca Rojas asked, does the domain's length matter? Good question, Blanca. We've already said that the shorter the domain, the better, because it's easier to remember. But it's not a crucial factor, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes a long domain might help you if the website is a micro niche, we'll talk about it later. Or if it's a TSA, we'll also talk about it later. I'm gonna give you an example of a website with lots of traffic, which has a very long domain and it's not a micro niche. ihauenespañol.com. Check it out. It has millions and millions of monthly visitors, and you can see how long the domain is, so no. Is shorter better? Maybe. Depends. I'm gonna say this 1,000 times. That depends is true. It depends. Don't wait for someone to give you a solid yes or no. It doesn't work like that. As I said, the non-optimal options are balanced with other options, and in this case it's a website with lots of content, lots of links, and it doesn't really matter. Fidel Amado asked, does Google take more into account for SEO a domain bought for 10 years than one bought for only 1? No. That's an SEO myth that someone said once and people believed him. No, it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It seems like a more serious project. Oh, come on. Limanet asked, Romuald, does adding a dash inside the domain affect the ranking? We gotta talk about this, guys. To begin with, logic tells us that it's better not to have a dash because it's easier to remember. There are people that say that it does affect, but it has been proven in many cases that it doesn't. I would say that if you can choose with or without a dash, pick the one without, of course. But for example, conversionrateexperts.com is a top-level domain in its sector and has 2 dashes. Same as always. One thing balances the other, don't worry so much. The important thing is to make choices and move forward. Don't let a shitty dash or an ñ stop you. Coming next, Freddy Figueredo asked, can I include the ñ letter to use the keyword design? Yes. A while ago, you wouldn't notice that small boost that EMDs give. But I can assure you you do, because I ended up ranking lasagna.com. And I know other cases that it worked too. Google interprets them perfectly. Donald Lalanghi asked, Is it true that domains with an accent mark such as Peru are not good domains for ranking? No, same as with N. You can use them, it's totally fine. I've also ranked domains with accent marks. Edmundo Perez asked, does it really affect if a domain is EMD, what we talked about? Yes, it does, especially in keywords with little competition. In mid-competition, you barely notice it, and in high competition, just a tiny bit. Pablo Navarro asked, do specific long-tail keywords still work? You're talking about large domains. Yes, they work for long, low-competition keywords. For example, otolaryngologist is long, but it's not easy to rank, understand? On the other hand, colored, flowery, tanned, sail in Vaividrera. If you've got that domain, you'll probably be the one dominating the sector of colored, flowery tans in Vaividrera. So yes, and now to finish with this round of questions, wait just a second. Thinking about it, I realized there's an important question left to answer, so I'll leave myself talking in the background while I answer the question. Juan Pascual asked, in the TSA series, you warned us not to use names of registered brands in the domain or we could receive a claim. That is true. Never ever use a name of a registered brand that's not yours in your domain, unless you want to experience the same feeling that I had when I received a €3,000 fine. Other questions that weren't asked and I believe are important too. Suffixes. What do I mean by that? If, for example, my keyword is facial creams, but facialcreams.com, .net, .org with dashes without them, all of them are taken, don't worry. You could pick facial creams with a suffix that could be VIP, Pro, Web, Block, Net, 10, whatever, facialcreamsnet.com, facialcreamsvip.com, etc, etc. And that won't affect that small boost given by the EMD. And finally, this is a personal advice that doesn't really affect the SEO, but it's also important. If you decide to use a domain with a keyword, try to place the keyword at the beginning of the domain. That's all, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. Remember, don't let anything stop you. Make choices and work hard. Only thing left for me to say is go watch the previous SEO course video or the next one, and I'm gonna stay here for a while until you click on it.